But all of these three centers are consumers of energy. It's an expenditure of the life force. And these centers can easily be in balance. So each one of them have their own frequency. And when energy moves into any one of these centers, systems begin to change. I looked at all the research. And the heart, once the energy makes it to the heart acts as an amplifier. Once it makes it here, the energy goes all the way up, all the way to the brain. And the brain starts going into greater degrees of coherence. You have an enormous amount of energy in your first center. So much life force that it can create another human being. That's a lot of coiled up energy. All of that energy could make it to your heart. If it makes it to your heart, it's going to go to your brain. But why not direct it right to that mystical center, to where some conditioning, some veil, some illusion is removed every time our heart opens, every time we connect. Redistributing that energy between these first three centers. We want the autonomic nervous system balancing energy in these three systems. Imagine the same passion you have in your first center being amplified in your heart. That's a lot of love. And when it happens, sometimes it's almost like you have to malfunction for a bit. I mean, it's happened to me. I don't function very well because it's so big. I need a moment. I just need a moment to let it in. It is big. And if that energy makes it to the heart, and it can move right to those crystals in the pineal gland, and that pathway of 146 begins to become opened, and you're training your autonomic nervous system to do it. It'll redistribute that energy amongst these centers. The second center has a lot to do with consumption. And when you feel safe in your environment, your body's more in balance, and you can consume and metabolize and digest and secrete and eliminate. All those biological functions take place in the second center. In safety, then it makes sense that when you feel safe and you have food and shelter, it's in balance. But it also means that consumption of food can be really pleasurable as well. And when you take on challenges in your life and you really succeed in them, it takes energy to even get up and get out of bed. You use your third center. But all of these three centers are consumers of energy, drawing from the vital field. It's an expenditure of the life force in the body. These centers can easily be in balance because most organisms in nature, if you study species in nature, they're in balance. They're not swinging from don't eat anything to then overeat. It's not the polarity of that. It's the polarity swings, and then as we get up to the center, it swings less. And this third center is really the ceiling of the ego. That's power. And Tolkien's books about, Lord of the Rings, the ring was power. And throwing the ring meant giving up power and for something greater. And it's love. That's the greater frequency. So each one of them have their own frequency. And all frequency carries information. Frequency, energy, has an intent. And when energy moves into any one of these centers, systems begin to change. When the first center switches on because there's energy in there, that center, the energy that activates the brain in that center, produces a mind in that center. Because consciousness or energy moving through neurological tissue is mind. When neurological tissue gets activated, all of a sudden there's a mind there. So when the first center gets activated, it has a mind of its own. And if the second center is activated, or the third center, or the fourth, when you're coming from different centers, there's a different consciousness or a different intent. And when energy makes it to the fourth center, though, now it's no longer the consumption, but there's the expansion of energy. This is the bridge that starts us to connect to our divinity. And connecting to that, putting your attention on it, not only creates heart coherence, but it produces a host of biological chemicals that are released, 1,400 different chemicals that begin to restore and repair the body. Some people spend the majority of their time living in that high frequency of stress. So then teaching people then how to make a move from that sympathetic system into the parasympathetic system means they have to practice on a daily basis. When a person begins to slow their brain waves down, they have to go, when you're in stress, when you're in survival, you narrow your focus on a cause. That's called a what's called a convergent focus. So now you're blessing the energy centers of the body. They're under the control of the autonomic nervous system. And when the autonomic nervous system moves out of balance, the brain moves out of balance, right? We narrow our focus on the cause, and it causes each one of these different energy centers to move into incoherence as well. And those little individual brains start moving into incoherence and send an incoherent message to the cells and tissues and organs. Hormones then become downregulated, and the body starts moving out of balance. So when we bless the energy centers, or we reprogram these energy centers, two things has to happen. They have to be able to slow their brainwaves down. They have to get out of that high beta state. And the way we do it is to go from a narrow focus to a broad focus. When you open your focus, when you open your awareness, that's what creates coherence in the brain, because you're going against that habit of putting your attention on matter. So there's a convergent focus, which is focusing on matter, and then there's a divergent focus, which is focusing on energy. Well, reality is both particle and wave, matter and energy. So if a person can slow their brainwaves down from beta brainwaves to alpha brainwaves, now they're starting to fall out of their thinking brain right into the home of the autonomic nervous system. The person can't change their brainwaves. It'll never work because they're in their neocortex and their thinking mind, right? So that's one thing that has to happen. The second thing that has to happen is that they have to practice both a convergent focus and a divergent focus. And we were looking at all the research together. I looked at all the research, and the heart, once the energy makes it to the heart acts as an amplifier. Once it makes it here, the energy goes all the way up, all the way to the brain, right to the thalamic gate, right into the brain, and the brain starts going into greater degrees of coherence. In fact, we have brain scans that hopefully we'll show you this week where people are in super coherence, really high level of coherence in their brain. Because as they start moving energy into their heart, the brain can take on more energy. Now here's the cool part. The energy that they feel in their brain, what we measure is in delta, is in theta, is in alpha, is in beta, is in high beta, and is in gamma. It's a really organized brain. So now once you start opening your heart, you get more energy in your heart, you get more energy in your brain. So it creates a field, and it begins to drive energy of the brain. So now that energy is going to cause the person to have a different consciousness, a different thought pattern, right? And now they're going to be thinking possibility, because in survival, the first three ones are all about survival. It's really not a creative process of creating from mind. It's more about a more primitive humanistic part of us, animal part of us. So then there's the thyroid plexus, the pineal gland, the pituitary gland. So we've seen when people create coherence in each one of these energy centers, and they do it properly, they know how to change their brainwaves. They get into the operating system. They can master convergent and divergent focus. They're no longer living just this way. They've practiced opening their awareness and focus on energy, becoming conscious of it. And as these brains become more coherent and they start producing different signals to hormones and chemicals and to different glands in the body, that's what's being upregulated to make different expressions. We see things like colorectal cancer change, prostatic enlargement, prostatic cancer, impotence, diverticulitis, uterine tumors, acid reflux, food allergies, high liver enzymes, heart palpitations, arrhythmia. One that's related, a lot of Hashimoto's syndrome, thyroid condition. Each one of these are an energy center, the cells and tissues and organs functioning out of balance. So you can't control that with your conscious mind. You got to get beyond your conscious mind and stay conscious in your subconscious mind. And that's what we do when we slow our brainwaves down. But we don't want just any kind of brainwaves. We want coherent brainwaves. When there's a change in consciousness, there's a change in energy. And people have the mediation of energy when it's right for them. And I have had all kinds of crazy things, but what I realized is that if I'm just doing the work to produce that crazy thing and my life isn't looking pretty good, there's something missing. Would you agree? It has to be that this is practical, that your efforts are a continuum. There's no end to it. And the side effects that take place with your body, that's incidental to what you are doing to create a better life, to create a new moment, to create a new experience. So don't get caught up in the phenomenon. Just get lost in the effort. That's all you have to do. In time, we do many different variations of the blessing of the energy centers, and we've seen people have dramatic changes in their health and in their life.